good to build up my confidence. But my hands were shaking slightly, and if you listened clearly, I'm sure you could hear the tremble in my voice. I had just let the board know some really bad news. We had only 3 months of runway left, and our growth metrics were far below our goal. I cleared my throat to deliver some more downers. I gripped the edge of the table, looking around the tiny, stuffy conference room in a midtown WeWork, wishing there was at least a window I could crack open to stop my sweating, or maybe throw myself out of. Around the table sat a wide range of people who were there to support the future of City Row. There were those I'd known for the better part of a decade, some that I'd just begun to build a relationship with, some who I had deep connections with, and others that I was almost afraid of. Some had put in large amounts of capital, some smaller, but all were meaningful. Some had been in the trenches with me solving big problems, and some stood on the sidelines. Some were experts in fitness, and for some, this was their first experience with franchises, hardware, and connected fitness. Together, they brought a lot to the table, and their job was to help guide the City Row ship alongside me. Technically speaking, this board is my boss. Now, you all know there's very little left of the $12 million, I said, and you're all going to think I'm incompetent, the little voice inside my head whispered like the devil. I still couldn't believe we were almost out of money after the largest raise we'd ever done. I was pissed, and I was pissed at myself, and scared that everyone would think me unfit to manage the company forward, despite the clear plan on how to use these funds. What had happened to the market? The frowns of all the board members deepened. We executed on our big, extremely expensive initiatives, but don't have a lot of traction. And as we all know, it's a crappy market out there, right? No one responded. Aside from their steely glances, there was no reaction at all. I soldiered on. Now, I said, we have to figure out how to reverse the company's trajectory in 6 weeks. And while I know the investors around the table just put in capital into a recent funding round, for the second, third, or even fourth time, given the market and the poor traction, we're going to need everyone in this room to put more money in immediately, or the company will go under. As I sat silently listening to the yelling and screaming around me, I floated away somewhere else, trying to drown out their fury and not internalize all that anger. Prior to the board meeting, I'd been terrified. All this business and governance, behind-the-scenes work was reaching a level of incredibly sophisticated business topics that I'd never broached. I was learning by doing and soaking up as much information from people and resources around me, like my incredible advisors and lawyers specifically. Today, instead of focusing on the concrete topics we had to handle that day and putting all my recent learnings on corporate structure and securities and fundraising options into play, I had to figure out how to navigate the wildly different people and personalities around the boardroom table and bring us all together on the same team, the same crew. My daydream was that I'd walk out of the room with a really positive story to tell, a triumph over my very first board meeting. Nothing of the kind happened. And in fact, I had been here before. Let's switch gears for a story around a different kind of table. This one in my college sorority house. I felt like I was waiting for my execution as I sat in a small, stage-like platform in the basement of my college sorority house in front of 50 or so of my sisters. To be fair, my life as I knew it did feel like it was hanging in the balance. To my right, Lauren was crying quietly into her hands. To my left, I could feel Jess nervously swinging her leg back and forth and biting her thumbnail, her biggest tell that she was super stressed. Final agenda item, said Rachel, the sorority president, looking down at her notes. In the meeting, we'd already voted on a theme for the spring formal, discussed changing our weekly chapter dinners to Tuesday nights, and nailed down a schedule for our sorority basketball team practices. I barely heard a word of anything that had been said, though, anticipating what was to come. Pros and cons of Helaine, Jess, and Lauren, she said. A reminder on how this works. Everyone who